Hey, Bab family. My name is Scott Valins, and I'm very excited to be here today leading this broker playbook, talking to you guys about scaling your mortgage brokerage. That scary word. I'm actually in the middle of scaling my business right now, and I'll give you a little bit of a background about myself in a minute. But first, I want to talk about the word scaling and what it really means. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Someone might think that going from like 10 loans a month to 20 loans a month is scaling, or going from 50 loans a month to 500 loans a month. I personally think scaling includes two key things. One is a significant increase in labor and staff, adding people to your workforce. And two, a shift in responsibilities for you, whether you're a broker owner or you're a big originator or whatever. I think those are the two ingredients to consider scaling. When we talked a minute ago about going from, let's say, 10 to 20 loans, that could be considered scaling, but a lot of times you don't necessarily need to add a lot of staff or really change your responsibilities. Maybe you do need to add an LOA or a processor, but if your core responsibilities aren't changing, I personally don't consider that scaling. So scaling requires a significant increase in labor and a shift in your responsibilities. So to take a step back for a second, I started my mortgage brokerage 18 years ago. Sorry, I got into the business 18 years ago, started my own brokerage about 16 years ago out in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time. At the end of 2008, when the market crashed, I moved to New York and reconfigured my brokerage, and now have a brokerage where I have offices in Los Angeles and New York. Since 2010, I've treated my brokerage really as a platform for growing my book of business. Some people call that like a mega producer, where you're largely focused on your own origination. All you want to do is originate more loans, and you're still the guy picking up the phone, making the sales call, and ultimately you grow by adding more processors, LOAs, people around you. But you're still the breadwinner. You're still the money maker. And about just take another step back. From 2010 to 2021, essentially now, I've incrementally had better and better origination years as far as loan volume. I think a lot of us could have that same track record, especially the broker community. We're so resourceful and good at generating business for ourselves and working our database and things like that. So it's been an incredible growth for me. But about a year and a half ago, I took a pause and I thought about what I wanted the next 10 years in the mortgage business for me to look like for me. And I decided a few things. One is that I didn't really want to keep only originating. I liked originating. I love it, frankly, and I think I'll always originate to a degree. But I wanted to step back and wear some different hats and take on some new roles. So that was kind of the first ingredient where I said, okay, the scaling thing might make sense for me. Number two is I wanted to generate a lot more revenue. I think it kind of goes without saying, we all do, but I specifically looked out at 10 years and I said, I want to pull 10 years of revenue forward into 5 years, right? So really accelerate revenue, ideally profits as well, but those come a little bit later. Again, another ingredient of scaling, I think. And the third thing was, I didn't want to have these mandatory hours that are required of a loan originator. I knew there wasn't going to be a decrease necessarily in the amount of hours I was working, but the mandatory hours are the hours where you always have to be on call to talk to a realtor or a loan or a client, whether it's weekends, nights, odd hours. And while I didn't mind it for the first 18 years of my career, I said, let me see if I can get into a position where I don't have to do that day in, day out. So that was the third ingredient. And the fourth, which is kind of a byproduct, was I wanted, well, sorry, not necessarily a byproduct. Actually, this was one that was really important to me that I missed, was I wanted to build a brand and a culture, right? And so as being an individual single originator under Scott Capital Group, I was my own brand. I represented me. I was Scott Capital Group. I still kind of am. I wanted to take this idea and make it a little larger. I wanted to build a culture. I wanted to hire more people, create a company culture, and put a brand around it too. It helps with recruiting additional talent to join your staff. I think we all know that when you put the mortgage business up against, like the tech business that's sexy right now, and you don't have a brand and a culture, then it might be hard to recruit someone that's applying to your job and maybe a job at like a sexy tech company. So I wanted to put that brand and culture element in there so we could go out and recruit people and ultimately have them join our firm. Those are the main reasons that I've chosen to scale my business. An interesting fact that I'll share with you guys now is that I'm literally in the middle of actually transitioning brokerages. I am now transitioning over to a brand new company that I've built that has all that brand and that culture behind it, and it will be rolled out in I think about 60 days. And so look out for that. So let's talk about the process of scaling and what it takes, right? So what I did first and foremost, and what I recommend for anyone who's interested in scaling, is I recommend you take out pencil and paper, or no one uses that anymore. Open a blank page on your screen and write down all the things that you do in the origination and the mortgage business that you're really good at. Right? So for me, let's see, I'm a great salesperson. I'm a great motivator. I think I'm a good originator, a good leader. My processing skills were actually awesome because I used to be just a one-man shop. So I learned how to process. I know all the guidelines. I feel like I'm an expert, a knowledge expert. So those are all the things I'm really good at. And if you think about it, those are the things that align perfectly with kind of like an originator or a one-man shop. But we're trying to scale. So then I wrote out all the things that I don't think I'm very good at and things that I'd rather outsource to someone else. So there are ideas like building systems, recruiting, HR, researching and implementing technology, financial projections and goals, CRM. So all those things. And as I say them, they kind of actually sound like the key ingredients that are needed to go from a small shop to a large company. So I took those skill set. I took those skills that I'm not very good at, and I went out and I hired people. I hired two key positions to help me grow. I hired a COO, and I hired a head of sales. We call them head of revenue, head of sales. Both of these guys, they happen to be men, came from a tech company that they helped build and scale and ultimately sell. So they had all of that experience from starting small, recruiting, hiring, culture, brand, all those things that I had no experience with, but that I knew I wanted to accomplish with my new company, and I brought them on. And now I'm in a position with those two guys to really go for it. So I've got my CEO hat on, but I've got my CEO, my head of sales guy right next to me. We now have a recruiter, and we're currently working on building out an excellent processing system, which we all dream of that perfect processing system, but that's kind of our North Star, and we're going for it. These guys actually have no mortgage background. I would say as a road bump for me, if I could do it all over, I'd love to hire someone or people that in these key seats that have a mortgage background, but I don't regret it. They're the right guys. I still think they're the right guys. And, we'll fill in the gaps with the mortgage knowledge, but those other skill sets that they have were the most important to me. So I went for general knowledge and skill set versus mortgage industry knowledge. But if you could find both, I think it helps with some growing pains. Let's see. As far as scaling strategy, right? There's a bunch of options. Now, this is as far as like actually growing your business and closing more loans. The two main opportunities are, consumer direct, right? Inbound leads, bringing traffic in and sharing it with loan officers you have, or going out there and recruiting existing loan officers with books of business. Personally, because I built a pretty large book of business myself that does between 200 and 300 million in volume a year, I knew that was kind of the foundation of what we could build upon. And so it's been a little bit easier for me to scale by hiring inexperienced people, training them with my two new guys. We built a great training system, and we've hired some experienced processors to help us there. And so we're bringing people in, we're training them, we're putting them in a processing seat for a certain period of time. And then if they have sales chops, we'll help get them licensed and move them over to loan officer. So that model feels good for us right now. I think we'll still end up doing a little bit of both, which means we will go out and recruit existing LOs with books of business. Why? Because I think it's low-hanging fruit. We all know in the broker channel that we are the best channel from a processing standpoint, from speed, from pricing. A lot of us are dialed into the best technologies that a lot of staid mortgage companies don't invest in. And so that opportunity is ripe and already there for us to go out and recruit loan officers in our community that are perhaps underserved and undersupported at their bank or perhaps another broker shop that's not as dialed into all these BAB things that we love. So we'll do a little bit of both. As far as my book of business, I can't originate like I used to. As I just explained previously, I was working 50, 60, 70 hours a week just as a loan originator. So how am I finding time to wear these other hats and grow and scale this business? I had to hand my book of business over to loan officers at my company. It's been very challenging because we have relationships that we built over a very long time, realtor relationships, even client relationships who are big spheres of influence who refer us other people. And it's a little scary to think about telling them, hey, I'm no longer going to be servicing your loans and your needs, realtors as well. You're going to now work with this person. So I feel like we've succeeded in the transition. And the main reason I've succeeded is because the loan officers that I've hired and trained are excellent. So it was a non-negotiable for me in talking with my new COO and my head of sales that I would not step away from originating mortgages until we had the proper loan officer and LOA support team in place to take my book of business and for it to be a seamless transition to the point where my customers and my realtors love these LOs as much, or often in some cases more than they love me. More than they love me in a sense because they're even more available than I ever was, right? When my book of business got so big and I was closing, 50 loans a month with me literally originating all of them, yeah, I couldn't give as much time and attention and energy to each file. And so now that I have 3, 4, 5 LOs that I'm sharing my book of business with, they have more bandwidth. So they're following up faster, emails, phone calls, et cetera. So I really encourage anyone who is in my shoes where you have a book of business and you're an originator and you never want to run away from that, that gold mine of revenue to support your growth, to be very careful about transitioning your book over to people at your company. Like I said, I think we've done a really good job with hiring inexperienced people. It's taken about 8, 9 months to get someone who's never been in the mortgage business trained, understanding the processing, understanding the guidelines, and up to speed to the point where the transition's seamless and the clients are totally happy. A couple other tricks that we do in there is I'll still stay involved. I'll often take the initial sales call with this partner and I'll give them a title such as production manager. I won't call them a new LO or a junior LO or an assistant. You give them a powerful, strong title so that the borrower or the realtor doesn't think that it's truly a handoff to a lesser capable person. So job title is key, and it's worked swimmingly. And these guys are doing great, and it's accelerating their career. And I also think it really builds a sense of loyalty from these LOs to the company for obvious reasons, but all that effort and attention and training. So you got to identify the right people up front. You're going to invest a lot of time and resources, and you're going to hand the keys over to these people. So make sure you interview properly and you hire properly. And if it's not the right people or the right person, that you let them go relatively quickly, like anything. So that part's been challenging for sure. Still face road bumps. I still face the urge to want to dive back in and originate because that's easy. It's what I'm trained on. It was my life for many years. These new hats I'm wearing with strategy and some operation stuff is very challenging. It's exciting and it's rewarding, but it's new. So I have to train my brain to say, you don't need to respond to that email. You don't need to make that phone call. Let your team do it. They're capable, and I can get back to doing things that help grow the business. So let's talk about technology for a second. Sometimes you hear about scaling and you say, oh, this company, and I need money and resources to build my own technology. We have to build our own CRM from scratch and all that. I personally disagree. I think in today's day, with so much great technology out there that us in the BAB community have access to through AIME and the discounts, which are amazing, I think technology is good enough now, and the third parties are there, that you don't necessarily need to shift technology or build your own technology to scale. Personally, we're a Flowify, Lending Pad, Jungo Salesforce shop right now, and we intend to use that same process and that same tech stack indefinitely, considering moving over to Arrive at the right time, and perhaps we'll exit Jungo one day and build out our own Salesforce. We're big Salesforce guys, but for now it's working, and we have no intention of changing it anytime soon. The good thing about hiring people who are better than you in those categories, such as technology, which both of those guys I mentioned earlier are great at, is that they are doing all the work to research the additional technologies out there for us. They're making the call, they're help building it out, tweak it. They'll come to me if they realize we're hitting our limits with any of it, and they'll go out and find the next piece of technology, do the research, sign us up, implement it, all that stuff. And that's the benefit of hiring people who have those skill sets. I know when the time comes, we'll improve our technology as needed, and I don't really have to think about it much. So yeah, that's the technology and process for us. What advice do I have for you guys when it comes to scaling your business? I think first and foremost, you have to think about your why. Why do you want to scale, right? I said before I wanted to scale because I wanted to pull revenue forward. Probably something that everyone who wants to scale wants to do, but I wanted to shift my hours, right? I'm in my early 40s, and I just had a newborn 4 weeks ago. And so 18 years in the business, the shift was important for me. I wanted to build a brand and a culture, something a little bit bigger. Some people don't necessarily care about that. They just want to stay small and originate and start their day, end their day, and have a very core set of skills and things you get really good at and just go from there. But I wanted to do some things a little bit differently. And then I think you need to have a little bit of conviction around it, right? It requires a lot of effort. There's a lot of sacrifice. You often have to take a step back in revenue. Your payroll and your overhead goes up a lot, so it can be scary. And so there's a lot of things. I would say it would be rare to hear someone who was able to go from being a smallish broker shop or originator into scaling without a lot of road bumps and some scary moments. So you really need to be prepared to spend money and possibly have some months that are in the red, and be okay with that. Stay true to your vision. If you want to scale and you're in it for the right reasons, then it's a long game, and you can get there. And I think we're on our way as well. So those are my tips and my insight into what we're doing, and look forward to the next broker playbook. I'm sure it'll be great. Thanks, Bab.